Welcome to What in the Smut podcast,
where the books are horny and so are we. I'm Elle and I write fantasy smut.
And I'm Kay and I write contemporary smut.
And this week in the Smutverse, NaNoWriMo is shutting down. The nonprofit behind the annual National Novel Writing Month Challenge is closing its doors after 26 years. The organization was struggling financially, but inappropriate volunteer behavior and the organization's wishy-washy stance on AI led to an unfixable chasm between NaNoWriMo and the writers it aimed to support. Elsewhere, a male fantasy author went onto Twitter to complain about going into Target and discovering that the fantasy section of their books was all, quote, chicklit and book talk slop, such as ACOTAR.
Rude.
Right? Don't worry. He was absolutely flamed on social media, and The Skim had a great selection of the best roasts on their Instagram, including, quote, that's a common mistake. The male fantasy books are all in the business section. They also helpfully pointed out that while women have never had a problem reading stories about men, the numbers say that the inverse is not true.
Yeah.
I wonder why that is.
Men.
Other authors are getting harassed on social media for far less valid reasons. They unfortunately need to be online to promote their books, but reasonably do not want to engage with readers talking shit. No, authors should not consider your constructive feedback a gift. Who the hell are you? We don't tag other authors in our posts because they don't need to see criticism about their work, no matter how silly or unserious that work may be. Even worse, however, some international authors like Ali Hazelwood are getting bombarded online for canceling their U.S. events. If you're privileged enough to be able to ignore the news, you may be unaware that it is now increasingly uncertain that crossing the U.S. border is safe, either for visitors or permanent residents. You are never entitled to an author's attention or presence, but you are especially immature for demanding they disregard their own safety because you want access to them.
I actually saw some of the stuff about Ali Hazelwood, and basically, like, she was born in Italy. Mm-hmm. So it is right now in our political climate very dangerous for her to leave and not know whether or not she can come back.
Right. Customs and Border Patrol have been cracking down, and they've been detaining even green card holders, permanent residents who've proven over and over again that they have the right to work and live in this country. And people are worried that they're not going to be able to come back.
And it's a valid worry. Absolutely.
Yes, of course. Calm the fuck down. Leave authors alone. Now, escaping the entire planet may seem like a dream to some of us right now, but our main character this week may have some words of caution for us on that front. Okay?
So this week we're talking about Planet Barbarians by Ruby Dixon. The blurb for this says, "You'd think being abducted by aliens would be the worst thing that could happen to me. And you'd be wrong. Because now the aliens are having ship trouble and they've left their cargo of human women, including me, on an ice planet. And the only native inhabitant I've met, he's big, horned, blue, and really, really has a thing for me."
Oh boy.
This covers like the first 3 chapters of this. It really gives you no further information about what's going to happen.
Yeah. I feel like sometimes blurbs for these types of books that are shorter than a full-length novel often give too much away. Like they are just like a summary of the whole plot.
Yeah.
This one does not.
Doesn't give any information, really.
Yeah.
So we've rated this a level 4, Release the Kraken. There are some dubious consent elements in here. There's also quite a bit in terms of the trigger warnings. You want to run down that list? Did you read the trigger warnings this time before you got into it?
No.
Oh.
No. And do not be like me, dear readers.
This one requires you to read the trigger warnings ahead of time.
And this is why books have content warnings, so that you can go in eyes wide open, knowing what you're getting yourself into. I was unprepared, which is not on the author. This is on me for not reading the warnings ahead of time.
The trigger warnings are in the book. If you're reading on your Kindle, it kind of skips over that. So if this is something that you're looking into, scroll up a little bit when you first start to read and you'll get to see this. But we're going to tell you right now.
Yeah. Our content warnings include non-consensual pregnancy, rape on the page, dubious consent scenario, suicide, drugging, non-consensual abortion, starvation, murder, and kidnapping. So we are going to discuss some of this. We're not going to get into too much detail about it, but we will give a little warning to let you know when we're going to start talking about it, and we'll tell you the time code to skip ahead if you do not want to hear anything about it.
So reviews for this, despite our list of trigger warnings, the reviews really kind of
run the gamut.
That is what I was going to say.
Yeah.
So a 5-star review on Amazon says, "Curiosity got this cat. I read this book after seeing a fan art TikTok and figured, why not? I fear I am headed into a 20-book rabbit hole. See ya."
Yeah, there are a lot of books in this series.
A 1-star from Amazon says, "Absolutely not. Unlike most alien sci-fi romance books where the humans are implanted with a translator to move the story along, there is no such luck in this book. Sure, one of the kidnapped humans was given a translator, but not the main character in this particular story. So you're left with her trying to sound out things, which means the author has written nonsensical things to portray what it must sound like to the alien to hear Georgie speak. It got old so damn fast and annoying. Very annoying. I am on the reviewer's side on this."
I was not, which is very funny. I thought it kind of worked, but we'll get into it.
The rest of it says, "There's a reviewer here that mentions rape. They were right. I thought maybe this reviewer was exaggerating or a bit of a prude. I was wrong. Sorry. The raping wasn't needed to move the story along. It wasn't a consensual non-consent situation." And then it says, "Stop it." And
yeah,
I would agree wholeheartedly with that part of this review.
Yeah, so we've got another 1-star review said, "Laughable and mindless. Imagine you've just started an episode of Mystery Science Theater. You've got your popcorn and you're ready to laugh and poke fun at a terrible movie. That's this book. Plot? What plot? Character development? Pfft. Descriptions? Nah. It read like a stream of consciousness, like a friend telling you a long-winded, very bizarre dream that made no sense except for being weird and funny. It was beyond mindless for me. The smut was humorous, but by no means did it inspire any heat. Oi, time to cleanse my brain." I don't necessarily agree.
I think that we're going to have a really interesting conversation today.
I think so too. The 5-star review that we have next was 10 out of 10 would bang a blue alien and don't deny it.
That was a Goodreads review. And then a 1-star from Goodreads says, "Was this absolutely terrible? Yes, it was. Riddled with plot holes, lackluster world building, insta-love, stilted dialogue, and why give a man a tail and horns if he's not going to use them?" However, am I also on my way to read the second book? Yes, I am. I will be taking no further questions on the state of my mental health. Thanks. That's a good one. I like that. And I kind of can agree with all of that, actually.
Yeah. So this was, interestingly enough, another book that didn't have chapters. There were parts and there were perspective shifts, but no chapters, lots of page breaks. And I would say part 1 did not have to be as violent and heartbreaking as it was.
I agree. Part 1, I could almost say was unnecessary entirely.
I also felt that. I feel like part 1 kind of undermines the relationship that she ends up having with Vektal.
Yeah.
Because, we'll get into it. But basically, part 1 didn't really seem like it fit. Part 1 felt like a Game of Thrones scene inserted into an ACOTAR.
Yeah.
Where it was like, it took itself so much more seriously. It had very intense scenes. It had very intense prose.
The author, Ruby Dixon, did say, a note for sensitive readers. It says, "Hello there. I wrote this book in 2015 after a spate of reading a lot of darker romances. You might notice that this particular story starts out more violent in tone than a lot of the other books in the series. I think I got my footing after writing the first one. So if this feels a little too dark for you, please be assured the rest of the series is not." And then it goes into the trigger warnings.
Oh.
I think that she probably went through a dark romance phase and then was trying to recreate that, but just, I don't think has the dark romance in her because it was too much.
Yeah, I could not agree more. Let's kind of set the scene for you a little bit. Georgie's our main character. She works at a bank. She's like a teller.
She's 22.
22, which is a little young for me these days as a main character. But
same. To quote Taylor Swift, she is feeling 22. This is very much feeling 22.
Yes, I agree. Very much so. So she is having nightmares, and it becomes very clear very quickly that all of the stories that you've heard about people getting abducted by aliens are true. The little green men with the big oval black eyes that are popular depictions of aliens, they do in fact come to Earth and they abduct people. And then once Georgie wakes up on the space ship and starts to get her bearings, we discover that it's not that they abduct people, it's that they abduct women. Mm-hmm. These are human traffickers, essentially. So Georgie wakes up in a cage in the spaceship in the cargo hold with 8 or 9 other women. We immediately get introduced to Liz, who's the one who kind of keeps her calm as soon as she wakes up. She fills her in. All of the girls are from Earth. Most of them are from USA. They're all 22, healthy, live alone. This is also where we get the non-consensual abortion mention. One of the women who was picked up was 2 months along, and they made the fetus disappear.
Which, again, is an unnecessary ad.
Correct.
This first part, there were a lot of really unnecessary ads. I'm here for the alien romance. I'm not here to, I don't know, get triggered, I guess.
I think what this did a great job of doing was building up a lot of fear and suspense that was then left with kind of nowhere to go once the romance started.
Yeah.
It felt like the foundation of the novel was very, very different from the plot that we ended up getting, which was kind of jarring, I would say.
I agree. So we find out that there's 2 kinds of aliens on the ship that abducted them. The little green ones, she could have just had the basketball-headed ones, is what she calls them.
There was so much detail in this first part of the 2 different types of aliens. The one group was the muscle, and they were violent, and they were big, and they were scary, and the other ones were the leaders, and they were the ones that drive the ship, and they're the ones that humans have quote unquote seen, and it was unnecessary.
Yeah, she describes the basketball headed ones. Mm-hmm. I call them basketball heads not because they've got oversized brains, but because of the pebbly, hairless, orangish texture of their skin. They have weird little bug eyes with an opaque eyelid and needle-like teeth. That is scary.
Yep.
For sure. That's a great way of describing, but the green one's not really so necessary.
Yeah.
She wakes up after the drugs are out of her system and the basketball heads are in there and everyone's moving to the other side of this cage that they're in.
Yeah.
And someone says no screaming.
As far as the main character goes, she's a good mix of realistically scared without being annoying to kind of be in her head, I guess, is what I'll say.
Yes, I agree.
She had realistic thoughts about the situation, is made of sterner stuff than I might be in a situation like that. Yeah. So it was easier to kind of live through it in her perspective.
The perspective made it easy later on for you to be on board with her being the leader of their group.
Yes, I agree. So we find out that Liz has been on the ship for 2 weeks, and the woman who's been here the longest is Kira. And Kira has a translator stapled into her ear, and she translates for the rest of them. And what they've surmised is that there are women packed into individual tubes on the side of the spaceship, and they are the original cargo. And the women who have been put in the cage, 8 or 9 of them at this point, they are extras.
Yep.
According to Liz, who heard it from Kira, who translated it from the mumblings of the aliens on the ship. So there's a certain amount of fear bred into the women who are wandering about in this cage that they could dump them at any time. They're picking up extra women to try to make their trip to Earth worth it. And unfortunately, we get this very unnecessary scene. And so this is where we're going to talk about the sexual assault, and the time code you should skip to is 1640.
So this woman that they brought in has red hair, and when she wakes up, someone tells her don't scream. She doesn't listen. No. Obviously. I mean,
she's terrified.
She doesn't know what's going on. They're trying to calm her down, and she's just hysterical. So then beeping goes overhead, and the girls all go still. And then the basketball heads grab her. She's trying to fight them off.
They pull her from the cage. Liz warns Georgie to do nothing. Like, Georgie impulsively moves toward the cage door.
She wants to help her.
Yeah, she wants to help this girl. And Liz holds her back and warns her not to look. And Georgie says, I look, though. Someone has to look. Someone has to see. And it was just like, oh my God, why are you doing this to me in this romance? Right. Oh my God, I was not ready for this.
So I have that this was entirely too graphic for something that quite literally did not need to be in the story, other than to give Georgie that fight mentality and to secure her spot as the leader. Because she thinks I'm going to kill those pebbly, gross bastards if they ever try to touch me. Yeah. It was so unnecessary. And it was, you get that visceral reaction to it. And it just didn't set the tone in the way that I think the author wanted it to. I think that a lot of people, based on the reviews, this is where they decided to DNF it.
Yeah.
It was unnecessary, and they could tell that that was unnecessary. And if you're going to start off in the first 15 pages with something like this, who knows how much darker it could get. You know, I totally get it for people that don't want to finish this novel. I think that if you start on page 20, you still get the same kind of understanding of where they are, what they're doing, and you don't have to live through that scene. So then it's been a week. They think that they're heading into space now. It said that they've picked up another person or two.
Yeah, they're finally full up on girls. Liz, Georgie, and Kira are trying to figure out what to do. And basically they come up with this plan where they decide that they're going to kill the basketball-headed aliens and attempt to take over the ship because, truly, what do they have to lose? If they get far enough from Earth, they'll never come back. And Georgie decides that because it's her plan, she'll be the distraction. She'll be the one that makes a lot of noise to get the guards to come in. And then the others will rush the guards once they try to take Georgie. So they commence with their plan, but it turns out that something is wrong with the ship. According to Kira, it sounds like the little green aliens are trying to decide if they're going to dump the cargo, which is the women. And Georgie proceeds anyway.
Again, sets her up as the leader because she starts with the plan and everybody else backs off.
Yes.
Nobody else helps her out.
But Georgie still manages to beat the guard to death. She can't figure out how to work his weapon. It is a gun, but never throughout the rest of the story does she figure out how to pull the trigger. So that's kind of funny to me. But then we see Kira is listening to her translator device and she goes, detachment commencing. And then the cargo hold, I guess, of the spaceship detaches from the rest and they crash land somewhere. And it ends up being on this ice planet. And two of the girls die on impact.
Yeah. And they're just so blasé about it. Two of the girls are dead over there. It looks like their necks snapped in the landing. What?
What? Literally. Oh my gosh.
Again, it was just some unnecessary violence and gore that could have done without.
Yeah. And what's strange is that it would have been a very good setup for a story that was continuing in that tone. Mm-hmm. You know, it created a great foundation of this is an intense sci-fi survival story.
Yeah.
That's going to continue to ramp up and up and up. It did not fit as the introduction to a romance.
No, not at all. And I mean, we'll get into it, but with the way that the story progressed, it almost butts heads with what she wants to do.
Yes.
So they realize that they're free from the green aliens.
For now. Because Kira says that the aliens are definitely going to come back for them.
So there's a hole in the roof. They realize that they've got enough food and water for a week. There's a Robinson Crusoe reference, which I've never read. So there were a couple references in here that she kept going back to that I didn't get. I didn't get any of the Star Wars references.
I wonder.
No, I didn't get any of the Star Wars references.
Oh my gosh. So I'm going to have to represent the nerds on this one.
So they remember that there are still 6 girls in the tubes that don't need anything. They think that they're in this like hibernation
chamber,
that they don't need anything. Someone suggests that they wake the other girls up, and Liz goes, God, no. How do we even know that they're aware of where we are?
Right.
For all they know, they're still tucked into bed and little green men don't exist. How would you like to wake up to find all this? And oh, by the way, we're stranded and don't have much to eat. In some ways, she's so snarky. And then in other ways, she's like logical.
Yeah, she's so real for this.
We are fucked, but let them have their nap while they are dreaming blissfully unaware of what's going on.
Yes, completely agree. Georgie realizes as they're having these conversations that the other ladies are kind of looking to her as the leader. And then Liz says it out loud and Georgie's like, oh no, someone else also thinks that I'm kind of the leader. I guess that means I have to be. So it's basically decided Georgie is the least injured of the group. Her wrist is fucked and her ribs are probably broken, but otherwise she's in pretty good shape, all things considered. So it's kind of decided that she's going to go around and scout out to see what she can find. If there's food, if there's life, if they're on Earth somewhere cold, which is a little too much to hope for, I think. Georgie's only in her shorty pajamas, so they work to undress the guard that she killed.
Also, we didn't mention that they didn't have any bathrooms in here, and it was referenced several times that there was like a bucket. So when they crashed, this waste bucket was essentially tossed all over the place, and also they were using that to try to like disarm the guy that she ended up like smushing his head. So now this uniform not only has alien brains on it, but it also has like blood, shit. It's just so it like kind of makes me gag just even thinking about it.
Yep, it's best if you don't think about it.
But as always, we think far too much about things like this.
It's so true.
She realizes when she climbs out of the hole in the top of the ship that there are 2 suns, which confirms that they are not on Earth. Which was a clever way for the author to like make that clear from the start. So they're not thinking that they're like crash landed in Antarctica or something.
Yes. I enjoyed that Liz was basically my representative in this story. She's a snarky little bitch and she's nerdy and has too much Star Wars knowledge. So when Georgie shouts down that it looks like Hoth from Star Wars, which is the snow planet where Han Solo tucks Luke Skywalker into a tauntaun to keep him from freezing to death.
I don't know so many of those words that you What's a tauntaun?
It doesn't matter.
For another day.
Liz shouts back a bunch of facts about the planet Hoth that would make it impossible for this planet to be Hoth. So I appreciated my little fiction rep.
And I didn't get it. And it comes back a whole bunch of times, too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I have a little note of, I thought it was a good use of pop culture to give the audience references for some of the things that these characters are experiencing without going too hard in one direction or another, without having to give too much description. I actually kind of disagree with that reviewer who said there weren't any descriptions, because there were a lot of descriptions.
Yeah, there were a lot of descriptions.
Some of them very unnecessary, but there was never a time when I was like, I have no idea what I'm looking at here. She was very descriptive.
I would agree with that. So Georgie's walking along in the snow and keeps reminding herself that there are people depending on her. Otherwise, they'd all just sit there and starve and wait for the aliens to come back. I don't really understand why there wasn't like a second person that agreed to go with her. Like why she needed to set off on this journey by herself. Like there could have been one of the no-name girls, but also like if they're gonna like shrink back and not do anything, then I guess it's more of a hazard and a bigger pain in the ass and will hold her back. So, okay, fine.
We've decided we agree with Georgie's decision to strike out on her own.
She's like, let me just do it by myself, damn it. I feel that sometimes. I understand.
Same.
So she's walking. She sees a lot of stalks and somehow ends up next to a bubbling, steaming stream. She grabs one of the stalks and realizes that it's attached to, quote, a face with a huge mouth, jagged teeth, and bulging fish eyes, which promptly snaps at her and tries to eat her.
So she screams and runs away and drops the weapon, is fleeing blindly, and she gets caught in a trap and basically like a snare. She gets grabbed by her ankles and hauled up into, not trees, but whatever the corollary is. And as she's hanging upside down, she's realizing this means that there is intelligent life on this planet that can create a snare.
Yep.
This could be good for her and it could be bad for her, because good in that there is potentially civilization. They're not alone on this planet, but also bad in that whatever it is could decide that she is dinner.
Right.
And she's been upside down for a long time. She's starting to stress out about how long a human can be held upside down. It's not very long. There's a reason it's an effective torture method. It's really, really bad for you. But she realizes as she's starting to pass out that she can see something white and furry nearby. And she passes out as the monster approaches.
Which kind of made me think of the abominable snowman in Monsters, Inc.
Same. That was literally the exact visual that I had in my head.
Because, like, they have that same kind of feeling, like, oh no, is this thing going to come and eat us? And then it's like, oh, hey, how's it going?
Hi! And I wouldn't necessarily say that Vektal fits that bill, but
no.
I was caught off guard by the perspective shift here. I didn't expect us to get one.
Well, because it's also like kind of a big chunk of the book has already gone by.
Yeah.
Now we're finally getting our male main character. We switch to Vektal's point of view, and he doesn't know what the, quote, thing squirming in his trap is. So he cuts the cord and Georgie flops to the ground. And then he says, quote, and then I am shocked anew as my qui resonates inside me. My inward being, which has lain dormant for so long, which recognizes no mate amongst my people. It vibrates and sings at the sight of this new creature. I stare at it. I said, I'm on board with new words, but sometimes she adds them in where you have to work too hard with the context clues, and still sometimes I'm occasionally unclear. Now, qui ends up coming up a whole bunch, but there's other words that he says that I'm like,
yeah. I agree. I think my notes say, alrighty, we've got fated mates on this planet, y'all. Like, I actually don't mind the foreign words here. I think oftentimes I feel that sometimes authors feel the need to spoon feed the audience. And qui especially is one of those things that does get fully explained later. And I would argue makes sense that we don't get a full explanation because it's so integral to Vektal and Vektal's clan that he doesn't even think about it. He doesn't think of an explanation for it.
And we do get a full explanation.
We get a full explanation. Later. It is not left up to the reader to just infer. It's not open-ended. We get a full explanation. I think there are just some words that aren't quote unquote translatable.
Yeah.
Their people are called the Sakui. It's a whole thing. But I hear you. I think it was okay. I wasn't as annoyed by it. I thought it worked pretty well.
So she's still passed out.
This is where shit got really, really, really annoying and really upsetting.
So he lifts her eyelid, and this just made me think of Tarzan or something. Yeah. He's lifting her eyelid, and the eye underneath is white, dull. There is no qui inside of her, or if there is, it is dead. She will need to be treated as if a child then.
He does not treat her like a child, by the way.
No. He undoes her clothes and makes notes that there are no ridges anywhere, just softness. So I said that then there's a non-con trigger. He strips her down, stares at her body like a creep, and then goes down on her. And I said, nope, don't love it.
Yeah. So basically, I would say there's some retroactive attempts to fix how fucked up this is.
Yeah.
in that he has a need within him because this is the mating bond, and it is part of his culture that you just kind of start going at it as soon as the resonance happens.
Yeah.
And he recognizes later that Georgie does not have a quee and does not have that urge and that same feeling, and he has to show patience.
Yeah, he refrains later.
He does not refrain right this moment.
And I think I could have been a little more on board with that, given that, like, reasoning behind it, if the whole spaceship scene hadn't happened.
Had not happened. Exactly. That is exactly how I feel.
Because this is not aggressive. It makes it better, in her opinion, which, like, it does not. In the spaceship was aggressive and violent and terrible and traumatizing. But this also could be just as traumatizing for someone. Because even though it's not aggressive to wake up. So we switch back to Georgie's point of view. She thinks she's dreaming again and then says, I'm getting to the wet part of the dream because I'm pretty sure I'm naked and there's a mouth between my legs licking me like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah.
So then when she realizes that she's not actually dreaming and there's horns, she wakes up and just whispers, oh my God. And I guess that this is a learned behavior from the past couple weeks where she's not allowed to scream.
Right.
So again, trauma.
She realizes that this is the figure she saw approaching as she began to pass out. And we get this incredible line, which was, it wasn't a monster come to eat me. It was this monster who's come to eat me out.
I mean, it's terrible, but it's pretty funny.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm not going to lie. I thought it was great. I am exactly with you on I could have been on board with this had we not started in the spaceship the way that we did.
So she does describe him, which, I mean, we know that I like to get the description from the other's perspective. So he doesn't ever describe himself as big or muscly as
which I appreciated. However, unfortunately, the moment that she said he was bluish and had horns, talking about Monsters, Inc., the rest of the novel, all I could picture the whole fucking time was Sully.
Oh my God. I pictured the abominable snowman, but not Sully.
Oh my God, he's blue and he has horns and he has fangs.
But,
like, I don't know what else you want from me.
So I was picturing more Avatar.
Yeah, once we got a little bit more sexual, I also transitioned more towards Avatar, especially with the tail.
She says horns rise from his hairline and curl around his scalp like a spiky lethal helmet. He's blue for one thing. Well, bluish gray with a black mane of hair that reminds me of a lion's mane. Going straight down his forehead to the tip of his nose is a striated pattern of ridges of some kind. And his eyes are a glowing shade of blue that I've never seen. And they're glowing as if from within, which this made me think of the ice guys from Game of Thrones.
Oh, yeah, the White Walkers.
Yeah, those. See, I have watched that. I just couldn't remember the word.
That's okay. I'm your nerdy reference here to be your encyclopedia. I got you.
That made me think of, because their eyes glow blue, which they're bad guys. So, like, I don't know.
Didn't help.
She also says, I've dated guys that I haven't been able to convince to go down on me, and this one's doing it as a greeting. And then she gets the giggles, and I kind of did too. That was pretty funny.
Yeah, I also found it kind of funny. The thing that was not great about this scene, there was good and bad, I would say.
Okay.
The bad, the obvious, the non-con of it all is that she is trying to stop him.
And he's not.
And he is not stopping, which is not great.
Yeah.
Because she was dreaming and she was kind of making noises that would sound like approval, and he continues doing it, I could see how the consensual non-con kind of gets played with here. But I don't think it quite works, because once she is fully awake, consent can be withdrawn at any time.
Agreed. Yes.
Even if you consented to begin with, fully aware that you were consenting and decided you don't want it anymore, you can revoke at any time. We're obviously playing with some elements here that you're supposed to kind of just accept that she's going to enjoy it and she's going to like that it happened afterward. And that is a hard line to walk as an author who's playing with these darker themes. So it's not really for me, unfortunately. But the thing that I really did like, and the thing that gets used a bunch more, and I think is a counterpoint to the reviewer who said, what's the point of him having horns and a tail if he's not going to use them, is this alien is designed for female pleasure.
Yeah, right? Like, grab on.
Fuck yeah. Literally, if we're going to have aliens, if we're going to make a romance
He's
about
got
it,
handles.
he's got handles. He has a textured tongue.
Yes.
He resonates, like he physically purrs.
Yep.
Like
he vibrates.
He's a vibrator.
Yeah. Okay.
And like once we get to like the actual sex scenes, his penis is also ridged. He's built like a rabbit vibrator.
Yeah.
Like ideal, genius, perfect for romance. No notes.
This part killed me. So he accidentally licks her clit and she squeals. He looks surprised, then confused, and then he like spreads her open and goes like adventuring. Yeah. It says he looks shocked, downright shocked at the sight of my clit. I said, I'm dying. Even aliens can't find the clit. Aliens are like the majority of men in the world. They're surprised
he found it. He was
there.
just confused.
Right. He found it, but it was an accident.
True.
However, he did go looking for it so he could repeat it. So, I mean, hats off to you, Ruby Dixon. So then, again, she kind of tries to get him to stop, and he holds her down, which this whole scene was like that really did kind of teeter on the edge. You're right.
It teetered on the edge, and I think it would have worked, to your point, if we hadn't started with the scene that we did.
Yeah.
None of this would have been as upsetting. Going in knowing that it is like consensual non-con, you would need that for sure. Yeah. But like this would, I think, work alongside some of those darker romance themes if we hadn't started the way that we did.
I agree. So then he starts to rub her very carefully. Mm-hmm. And he makes her come, and he's very proud of himself, as he should be.
As he should be.
And then he flips her over and she's like, oh, no, thank you. She is not having it. She kicks him in the chest and ends up hurting herself in the process. And then says, when I look up, the alien's furious. Ugh, again,
not great.
Like, not great given the way that this whole thing had started.
Correct. So we get this perspective shift. We turn back to Vektal, and I, at this point, was like, how are we going to save this?
Well, and now we're in part 2. I would say 3/4 of part 1 we could have done without.
Yes, agreed.
Dropped us in, maybe give a little backstory on how they ended up there, but dropped us into that, and I would have been more on board with it.
You could have even started on the spaceship. You could have been like, don't scream, left it up to
the reader.
The imagination of the why you shouldn't scream without it being so fucking traumatizing.
Yeah.
And then dropped us here. We could have gotten there without all of the triggers necessary. But here we get this interesting balance, I would say. Vektal is confused, and he's angry that she doesn't want to mate. And I have in my notes, but he does recognize fear, so he's doing his best, I guess.
Yeah, I said men are literally the same in every universe.
It's so true.
It's so almost as if she does not want to mate. It's almost as if she doesn't want me.
Yeah, like what the fuck?
What is happening?
But he attempts to assess her ankle, which she hurt while kicking him. And she flails in an automatic kind of defense response. And she hits him in the face, and he snarls. And she immediately goes quiet and still.
And like cringes and she flinches back. Yeah,
she flinches away. I said the wires are very crossed here because, quote, how can she possibly think I would harm her? But she is cringing back even now as if expecting a blow to fall. Rage fills me because this is not a normal response, end quote. My dude, this is a very normal response. But also, I hate that you're right with someone has hurt my mate in the past.
Yes.
Like, we get this interesting balance of touch her and die vibes. It almost hits the right note. I don't know. It's become kind of a cliche now of who did this to you. It doesn't quite work because he's like, this is not a normal response.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean it's not a normal response?
It's very much giving Beauty and the Beast vibes.
Oh, yeah. Like, how dare you be frightened of me as I snarl at you?
Exactly. Like, come to dinner. Yeah, so it's very much giving, especially kind of with how he is described. It's almost like she's got a little thing for the Beast. And I think we can all agree that the Beast is more attractive than when he turns into the human. So, but that's a story for a different day.
The biggest disappointment of our collective adolescence, I feel like, was realizing, like, what the fuck do you mean? This is... No.
Anyway,
we digress.
So I said that, this is the first time that we're really getting her words from his perspective.
Yeah.
And I said her conversation from his perspective is an interesting choice, but also I hate it. So essentially she's taking, you can tell that she's saying that hurt, damn it. But she wrote it on the page just by getting rid of the vowels.
Yeah.
But it's not even consistent with how she does that. I hated it. I hated it.
That's so funny because, I thought it kind of worked. I thought it was interesting.
I think the problem is, I'm a fast reader.
Yeah.
So for me, I had to slow down to figure out what she was saying. And I think that's what made me mad.
I could see that. I'm also a fast reader, but I think it's a little bit of a good thing to be forced to use your brain sometimes.
All right, fine.
Literally, what's funny to me is my notes literally say, I like the language barrier. It's just enough to be believable without being tedious, and it creates an interesting dynamic where they have to find ways to communicate. She is trying to teach him her name, and he realizes that she's teaching him her name, and it's kind of wholesome.
In some ways, yes, I'll agree. They have to play a lot of gestures there.
Yeah, later on when they're in the cave and they're pointing at things and giving their different words for it. I thought it was cute.
That part, yes. But the way that the words were on the page, I just didn't like it. And I mean...
I noticed.
So, because he realizes she's mad, he notices that she doesn't have fangs. And then, just like he was peeling her eyes open, starts peeling her lips back to examine her teeth. I said, it's like Tarzan, but aliens.
Yes.
He says, her body is different than that of a Sakui. She's soft and hairless in most places, and I haven't seen a tail. And then there's that strange nipple between her legs. Which he brings up again later. It kills me. I loved that so much.
So yeah, this is where he realizes she doesn't have the Kui. And so she doesn't feel the same things that he does, and he needs to be patient. And he's starting to understand she doesn't have the same urges. She's not tied to him the way that he is to her. She is hungry and tries to communicate that to him, but mostly just ends up ogling him. He's 7 feet tall, and she obviously finds him very attractive. It's all very romance.
Yes.
I would say.
So he offers her some of his food and she says, I'm starving. I cram the entire piece into my mouth and begin to chew. Right away, I can tell it's a mistake. The taste is, awful is the kindest word I can think of. It's like I've bitten into a package of jalapeno peppers mixed with a vile, mealy texture. And I said, it actually kind of sounds good to me.
I agree. I like spice.
All I can think of is deep fried jalapenos.
Yeah.
That sounds delicious.
Sounds awesome.
But I guess not. So she's cold. She's exhausted. She's emotional. She starts to cry and he comforts her and gestures for her to rest, and she falls asleep.
Yep.
As they do, she wakes up pressed against his body. They start to get dressed. She says she's hungry again. She says over certain spots on his body, he has knobby ridges. I wonder what purpose they're for. They decorate his brow too and write down his nose. Girl, their purpose is for your pleasure.
Correct.
Ridged for your pleasure.
Yeah.
You hit the alien jackpot.
Correct. He is dismayed by how little she knows about the environment. And so he's getting clues that she is completely helpless here and doesn't know how things work here. And he doesn't understand what that could possibly mean. And he takes her to a hot stream to like test her knowledge of the environment, which immediately fails because the fish monsters attempt to eat her.
Which I wonder if that's the same as like the fish monster that almost ate her at the other stream.
At the beginning. I think it's the same.
It's like when in Trolls and Poppy's walking through like, it's gonna be a fantastic day. No, you haven't? Oh man, no. You're missing out as a good one.
Okay. I'll have to revisit.
My cartoon nerd alert is...
So he ends up throwing some berries into the stream to scare off the monsters so that she can wash because she is disgusting, as we discussed. He keeps thinking things that I found ominous, which is she'll take a quee whether she wants it or not.
Yeah.
I didn't like that. That's why I kind of liked the fact that we didn't know exactly what quee was.
Until later, yeah.
Until later, because... the way that he's thinking about it makes sense in that you need it to survive. Like, it does a lot of things, blah, 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 blah. But, like, you don't really know what the implications are until much later.
Right.
But so they're in the hot spring together bathing, and he's, like, helping her wash, and he is being very respectful. She realizes that he's trying to be very, like, helpful without pushing her. And she decides, for some reason, and I don't understand why, that she's going to use her body to get him to take her back up the mountain to where her friends are stranded.
Yeah. She starts to like rub her body against him, essentially to seduce him into bringing her back to her friends. So she does say, hung like a horse never really had much of a meaning until now. I'm not prepared for ridges. He's got freaking ridges on his cock. Again, designed for your pleasure.
That's what I'm saying.
So it also says that he's got the bumpy, knotty ridges along the top of his cock, his very big, very thick cock. In addition to those ridges, he has an additional one that almost looks like another horn, except it's blunted at the tip instead of sharp. Again, made like a rabbit vibrator.
I think this is literary genius. This is perfect for Smut. I challenge you to have any objections to an alien who is built to make a woman feel good.
She does say, I'm more interested in bathing than playing hide the sausage. Yeah, so she knows that, like, she shouldn't be using her body to try to get him to do what she wants.
It's a questionable tactic, just given how little they can communicate at this point. It is, I would say, a gamble to indicate that you are going to seduce him. It is not necessarily clear that you mean you're going to give it to him later.
Oh, yeah.
This could just be a normal misunderstanding. I don't know if it's before or after she teaches him how to kiss, but she was like, I can't tell if he's just going to take what I'm offering right now without giving me anything in return. And I was like, I would understand his confusion, frankly.
Yes.
Like,
So she keeps saying, we'll go up the mountain, back to the mountain. And I said, Vektal's going to think that mountain is her word for sex with how much they're repeating it to each other as she's like touching him and stroking his body and stuff like that. So now that they're clean, he motions for her to get dressed. So they didn't do anything other than make out in the water. He starts to bring her to another cave, and now she's mad because they're not going towards the mountain. Her attempts did not work.
She is freezing to death, though, is the reason why he attempts to do this. Her hair is wet, so it's freezing. So the further up the mountain they go, the colder it gets. Yes. And so he's trying to keep her alive.
But she's mad, so she starts to stomp off, and she falls off a cliff. It says that she falls for 10 to 15 seconds. That is a fall.
I literally had to just ignore that because
that would be like Empire State Building.
If you do the math, I'm pretty sure she would have reached terminal velocity. I don't think that's possible for our main character to have survived it. It didn't seem like the snow at the bottom was that deep. She fell into a cave.
Yes. And somehow she's not hurt at all, except she landed in a den of some terrible creature. And now we're in part 3. The den of these creatures that she fell into. He basically had said that they're the only other similar creature to him, but they don't know how to make fire. So like they're not an intelligent species.
Which is why I would call them kind of like monkeys. They're very furry and they have faces kind of like Ewoks. There's another Star Wars reference you might not know. And in packs, they can basically tear a living creature apart. Yeah. So he drops down into the cave and rescues her. He takes her back to the cave that they were originally headed toward. And now she's feeling stupid because they haven't made any progress. They're back to exactly where they started, except that now he's mad at her and she hurts more than ever or whatever.
Yeah. So like the whole time she's just thinking about how miserable she is.
Yeah. But she is going to seduce him here. I thought that the smut was smutting. Personally, I thought it worked very well. I thought that they had a good amount of buildup. They are coming down from an almost dying adventure, and he is showing good deference. He is not making moves that she doesn't encourage.
Yeah.
She is seducing him because she wants to and because she's attracted to him. And fucking this alien is literally built to make her feel good. And I thought that the descriptions were really good. I thought the erotic language was really good. I disagree entirely with the reviewer who said that it's not hot. I thought it was hot.
In some cases, yes. And then in other cases, it was very 22.
Yeah. So, I'll give you that.
So, like, she is teaching him to kiss, which I thought they had already been doing in the river, but he's a fast learner. She says, pulling my mouth to his, Vektal begins an all-out kissing assault that leaves me utterly dazed. He nibbles and sucks at my own tongue, then starts a slow, languid thrusting that reminds me of sex and leaves me aching with need. I said, now this is a good description of kissing your mate. It's amazing how the connections between books that we've read tie in from week to week, because remember how we had said during the donut one that like the kiss was so good because he was my mate. Yeah, like this was a really good description of kissing your mate.
I kind of liked that we had what could have been a born yesterday male character. There's some of that innocence, there's some of that naivete, but not actually.
Yeah.
As they like learn and grow together, he has knowledge that she doesn't have. Yeah. She has knowledge that he doesn't have. And it balances out pretty well.
It does. Yeah, for sure.
I think the one thing in the smut that I was like, I don't like this, was basically like we get very intense descriptions of her first orgasm, essentially. Of like getting to that point. The obvious ominousness and foreshadowing in the line, "It's a good thing you can't get me pregnant," about killed me dead. Because I was like, for the love of God, do not give me an accidental pregnancy. Do not do this to me.
It is that accidental pregnancy trope, which we'll get into.
Except Vektal didn't think it was an accident.
Yeah, well, that's true.
This is basically non-consensual impregnation is what this is. Yeah. Because this is like...
when a woman says she's on birth control but pulls the goalie and isn't.
And same thing when men like pretend to put on a condom and don't. Yeah. Like that is a risk that you were not signing up for as part of this activity, and that is not okay.
Yeah. So some of it was so weird.
What were some of the weird parts? Maybe I just like skipped right on by them. She said,
if I'm totally honest with myself, I slept with him because I'm completely attracted to him. The horns, the blue-gray skin, the tail, the weird cock, all of it. His gruff, protective demeanor, it does it for me. I was like, this is so weird.
I don't think it's any weirder than anything else that we have read up until this point.
Yes, for sure.
I think it works.
Okay. All right.
At the very least, I like that the main character is so obviously attracted to him as he is.
Yeah.
This is a very common corner of the internet. This is monster fucking at its finest. And the fact that he's an alien is neither here nor there.
That's fair. That's fair. Okay.
I almost made Kay choke on her tea.
So Vektal tells her that he's going to check the traps and then that they'll go to the mountain. Yeah. And he finds another girl frozen in the snow. Yes. And he thinks to himself, as I stare down at it, I realize my Georgie's not here alone. This is why she's so frantic to get up the mountain. There are others like her.
And we'll kind of keep it brief, but this is why we have the suicide note at the top. We'll discover later that this is the girl who was attacked on the ship and she didn't want to live.
Like, she didn't deserve that story arc.
No, she did not. Nope.
So it was Dominique, the girl that had screamed at the beginning.
Yeah.
So they make it back to the ship, and as she gets to the top, she gets nailed in the face with a snowball.
Which I kind of enjoy.
I was like, snowballs are what they're using? Like, also good aim, I guess. But like, really? Yeah. Snowballs are for their weapons? I guess use what you've got.
Well, they got nothing else.
Yeah.
So she gets back in. Vektal comes in with her. And Kira's translator reveals that Vektal and Georgie have been intimate, we'll say. And the other girls kind of laugh at her. They take it, I think, well enough in stride, given that, I don't know, Georgie like abandoned them for 2 days and they didn't know if she was alive. And they, I think, are very gracious about the fact that she's been shacking up with a big hunky alien dude.
Liz goes, oh shit, that's what held her up. Alien nookie.
Yeah.
It says, I'll blow him if he makes fire. And Georgie gets jealous about it. So despite the fact that she doesn't have the Qui, she is still having these reciprocal
possessive
feelings
kind
for
of
him.
thoughts.
Yeah. So he tells Kira he's going hunting and to get firewood and for us to keep an eye on his mate. And Georgie panics at the word mate.
Georgie's confused and upset by this, but decides that she has kind of other things to worry about, I suppose. So they get discussing. Vektal is thinking to himself how delighted he is by the idea that there are 5 other women who could also be mates for the unmated males in his tribe.
We find out that there's over 20 unmated males and there's only 5 adult females in the tribe, and they are all mated to someone else.
Indeed. And I said, I understand now why there are so many books in this series.
Fair. Everybody needs their story.
Everybody needs their story. So Vektal comes back with supplies. Megan has a very deep cough. This is the first time we've heard her name. Georgie asks Vektal if he has medicine, and he replies with the help of Kira's translator that she has the Qui sickness, which doesn't translate in Kira's device, and we're not sure what that means, but it is indicated that without a Qui, you get very sick.
Yeah.
So the women are discussing their situation, and it is bad. And Liz explains what happened to Dominique, which was obviously worse. And then it's getting late and they're gonna go to sleep. And this was another moment where I was like, men from every universe are the fucking same. Because, like, when it's time for bed, he tries to have sex with her again, and she does not want to because, like, they're in earshot of all the other girls.
And, like, they can hear the other girls whispering, like, just go to sleep. Don't listen to them. Or, like, get some. Like,
no.
Yeah. So then they just sleep. And the next day, he tells Kira again that he isn't equipped to take all of them to his people right now. My home caverns are many hours walk away. With Georgie, it will take me 2 days to get there. I will get my people and we will come bring you warm clothes and travel rations. Then we'll take you home with us and you will be safe there. So they're all surprised that he has people.
Yeah. We are in Vektal's perspective and we see Georgie like put a hand to her forehead like, don't, like I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
Like, of course he has people. And he is, it turns out, the chief of his tribe.
Yep. Of course he is. Of course he's the chief. We got to start the first book with the chief.
Obviously. And we get in the mechanism that annoys you so much, Georgie's indication that of course he's the chief, he's very bossy, but it's written like from Vektal's perspective.
I don't even have that in my notes because like
because you gave up trying.
Yeah, it took me too long to read it, so I was like, forget it. I don't care what she said. I'm gonna not know. Just like I'm gonna live through Vektal's perspective. I don't know what she's saying either. Let's move along. So they start the trek. They leave some furs and a couple of his blades with the other girls, along with the food that he had caught. And they start the trek towards his tribe. They stop at a cave that Georgie is surprised at the uniformity of the walls.
Indeed.
They're all covered in ice. And then I have, he really likes oral.
True. And we love a male romance character.
Yes.
Like Sorrel.
Just a male in general. Never mind male romance character.
Basically, Vektal calls this cave the Elder's Cave, and the walls are similar to Georgie's crash pod, essentially.
Yep.
And so I said, this is interesting foreshadowing. And then my next note is, oh, not foreshadowing, just immediately explained, because it will be immediately explained. But I said, now that they have privacy, the sex can resume. So afterward, Georgie sees a light blinking. And this is where I said, oh, okay, the foreshadowing wasn't really that fore. We're going to learn right now that this is a spaceship. So it is a spaceship. It's coated in ice, and Vektal gives her a torch to help her melt the ice. And as the ice is melting, we get this realization from Georgie that she could potentially get back to Earth. And she's debating whether that's what she wants. And this is now kind of that conflict between her and Vektal of, he clearly wants her to stay here. He thinks that she's his mate, and she is now presented with what might be her ticket home.
Right. But also, like, women can do anything.
Okay, yeah. Not going to argue, but continue.
So, but she really thinks she's going to be able to, if this is a working spaceship, somehow fucking figure out how to fly it back to Earth. What?
True.
She
has a weird amount of confidence.
Yeah, women can do anything and fake it till you make it, but no. It's not happening. I don't care if you are the smartest female on Earth, away from Earth. You're not going to somehow manage to figure out how to get this spaceship working. It's not going to happen. But I digress.
She manages to find a button.
Yes, and it like boots it up. So who knows? Maybe she would be able to fly it.
I know.
All it takes is one button.
So this is where things get interesting. So she has kind of come to the realization that she would be happy to stay here with Vektal, but the other girls don't have that option, so she thinks. So she presses the button for them, and the spaceship boots up, and it has an AI with next level large language model, I suppose, that recognizes Georgie's language. And what was funny was, as the boot up sequence was being described, I actually felt as excited as Georgie was.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's good writing.
I thought it was well done.
The computer explains to her where they are, and that Vektal is a modified sock.
Yeah.
Modified for habitation on this planet. So we find out that there were 62 passengers in this spaceship.
Which used to be a pleasure cruiser.
Yeah. So like they were just on like a cruise.
A trip.
They were on a vacation. So many also died before accepting the symbiont. So then we find out the reason for the Qui.
Indeed.
The computer tells her this planet has an element in its atmosphere that is toxic to humankind and also to Sock, which convenient that it's those two things that it's toxic to, but okay.
It might be toxic to many things.
That's
to be
true.
Fair. It's just that these are the two relevant ones
Fair.
that the computer
Okay,
is
fine.
looking at.
I'm too cynical for this one, I think. So it continues, once you reach toxic levels of the element, your body will slowly shut down. The Sock at your side exists in mutualistic symbiosis with a creature they refer to as a Qui. Those who originally found themselves stranded on this planet lasted 8 days without the symbiotic relationship. Then she gets this like one-time linguistic upload.
I said, this is incredible. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm okay with this.
Yeah, I'm okay with it too, because now I don't have to try to figure out what the hell she's saying when we're in Vektal's perspective. So she gets this like brain jump or whatever.
I said, of course, the moment we can communicate properly, we use the word cunt. He said that she could understand. Are you kidding me?
Not even see that. That is so funny.
Let me fucking find it
entirely. That's so funny.
Okay, it's not the first thing they say to each other, but basically he's shocked that she knows his words, and there are some things that don't quite translate because the computer had a different dialect. Yeah. And I thought this was all very, very funny and good and cute. And then he's urging her to eat. And she's explaining why she can't eat the food because because it's like so spicy to her that she literally can't consume it. And he says humans have weak tongues, weak eyes, weak bodies, weak in many, many places, but a delicious cunt. And I was like, are you kidding me with this? Come on.
Oh my God. So he keeps calling her his mate and she is not having it.
Yeah.
She says humans choose their mates and I haven't chosen anyone. Like, yeah, girl, stand up for yourself. But then, not that you aren't nice and not that I don't care about you. It's just that mating should be a mutual decision. And I think that this was like, and she might have said it later, but so many decisions have been taken from them now.
Yes.
She still has this one and she's going to hold on to it for however she can.
Which I thought was good. I think it resonated. I think we still did not need all of the traumatic scenes in the beginning for it to have hit. But I also have this note here of, given how little we know of Georgie's home life and how she hasn't thought about her friends or family at all in the time we've been with her, I don't think she's going back to Earth.
That's true. Basically, they did say at the beginning that all of the women had no like family nearby. So they kind of all were loners.
They were selected for a reason.
So she tells him that she feels guilty for leaving the other girls behind. She says, because I'm here with you and I'm warm and happy and fed and they're not. And he goes, and because my cock makes you cry out with such pleasure. Again, fantastic.
Absolutely incredible. No notes.
So they get close to his home cave and they run into one of his hunters.
Rahosh.
He studies her, he points out her weird human features, and then he's like, you're lucky to have found a mate. So like he's happy for his chief, his friend.
Yep.
And then Vektal tells her, and you shall sleep in my furs tonight.
Yeah.
And she thinks, I blush because I feel like that's an obvious way of saying we're totally doing it to his buddy. But Rahosh doesn't blink an eye. However, Rahosh is real happy when he finds out that there are 5, actually 11, but they don't know that yet, other females. He's like ready to jump back and head that way.
And Georgie is not thrilled about this reaction. She's like, I want to save my friends, not sign them up for an alien mate without their consent.
Yeah.
And Vektal like assuages her anger and says, no male in my tribe will mate without the humans' agreement. Rahosh does not seem like he's going to let this go at this point, and I did not like that.
Yeah.
Personally.
So they get into the cave and people are like calling out to Vektal like they're glad that he's back. And he says, this is my mate. And a little kid goes, Mother, why is its face so ugly?
It's so good.
It's perfect because kids absolutely will say
Do
whatever they're thinking. And she just laughs it off.
And Vektal kind of takes it personally and gives this long, beautiful soliloquy. And the basis of it is just, she's beautiful to me, okay? And like Georgie really likes his little speech.
Yeah,
though,
she goes, okay, for a barbarian, he's pretty good at making a romantic speech. I'm totally giving him a handy for real when we get alone again. Again, like...
Very 22.
Very 22. So they get to his cave and we're introduced to Maylok, who is a healer.
Indeed.
We also found out that before she found her resonance, her and Vektal used to fuck.
Indeed. And Georgie has a moment where she's like, I'm jealous. And then she realizes that she mostly just feels very sad for Vektal to have had such intimacy with someone and then have them be stolen away and not have that feeling for yourself. So she ends up being very gracious for a 22-year-old, I think.
Yes, and she thinks, oh, this must have been sad for him. He's totally getting a handy tonight. Again, yes. Is what she says with that.
Yes.
So Georgie does start to ask Maylok questions about the Kui. It does not wake up until it senses a mate. And then it makes its presence known fiercely, which I thought was a good explanation of the mate feeling. She says it is possessiveness too. Your mate is yours, and those who wait to claim their mate find the feeling intensifies over time. It is difficult to describe. It is more than a feeling. It is knowing. which is kind of a cool way for her to explain, like, he's really trying to hold back, but like, it's getting stronger the more that you're telling him that this isn't going to happen.
So Vektal has assembled a team of hunters to come rescue the humans. And of course, they are all unmated males. And of course, Rahosh is going to come with us. And I said, I foresee trouble with this one.
When he's assembling all of these hunters, he's answering all of their questions. This is like boy time. So
yes, I forgot about
one
this.
of the men says, she is small. Can she take you? Which makes him mad, even though he knows it's a reasonable question. Like, it's curiosity. He's not saying it to be like salacious or anything. But the information that he does decide to share is very strange.
I know.
He says she has fur in one other spot on her body, on her sex, and a third nipple. I said, doing the Lord's work over here, bringing attention to the clit. One of the men says she is deformed and yet she will not accept the mating. She should be lucky to have you. He tells that man that he's speaking out of bitterness and jealousy and that Georgie will have a queen soon, and in her land they choose their mates. So he gets back to his cave and she goes, I thought you were going to wake me with a mouth mating.
Oh my God. I didn't like that word either.
So he tells her to go back to sleep, but instead she starts to undo his pants and gives him head. And she goes, you're too big for me to take deep. I can barely fit my fingers around you. I said, authors need to stop writing this and then making it seem like it feels good when they're actually having sex. I'm sorry, but like a soda can, like, authors a lot of times try to make it seem like it's the size of like a Coke can or something. And that's
right. And I'm just like, I feel like men so often get so upset with romance novels because they're giving women unrealistic expectations. And most of the time what they mean is, how dare you write men that listen to women speak? And what I think they should actually be upset about is this unnecessary glorification of porn star-sized dicks that are not comfortable.
Right.
Like, that's just not enjoyable.
Exactly. Anyway, they're spooning. He's still inside of her. The nub at the base of his cock is now nudging into her butt, and she's kind of into it.
Which I'm like, okay, this reasonable kind of like introduction.
Yes, for sure.
To potentially wanting to explore anal play, where like stimulation, not full insertion, lots of thinking about, do I like this? Feeling the sensation. I like it. It's reasonable. It makes sense for like a beginning of a relationship.
So then she notices that his quee has stopped the purring noise, and he says it silences for a time after a mating. It will not go away even when the kit arrives. And I go, surprise, bitch, you're pregnant.
And that's where my notes go. And there we are. God damn it. Vektal can get her pregnant. And in fact, the reason why a quee resonates is because it senses a female that can get pregnant with its host body.
He said a quee always responds to a fertile female.
And she's angry about it.
Yeah, she's mad.
And she should be.
And she should be, absolutely. But she's not mad for long.
No, she is not, and I'm annoyed by that as well.
So she says it's hard to stay mad at Vektal.
It's hard to stay mad at a guy who doesn't know why you're so upset. No, scratch that. It's easy to stay mad at a guy like that. It's really, really hard to stay mad at a guy who acts like you're the best thing since sliced bread, pampers you at every turn, and acts like the baby you're carrying in your belly is the only thing he's ever wanted in his life. And I thought that was kind of funny because, yes, it is absolutely easy to stay mad at a man who doesn't know why you're upset.
100%.
Especially, like, because he should know why you're upset. God damn it. Like, you haven't communicated it many times. Come on. I'm just saying.
Girl, preach. So they're trekking back to rescue the other women with 9 of his strongest hunters. And she still has not told him that there's not only 5 women, there's actually 11 that they need to rescue.
Indeed.
Also, she has the urge to touch her stomach. I said already, eye roll. So I also said, is the gestation period for aliens longer or shorter than humans? I have a lot of questions that were not even touched upon. Maybe in some of the other books that would be discussed. But they pause at the Elder's Cave overnight, and a few of the Saqui learn English through the brain zapping.
Which I did appreciate.
It also said that Rahash was the first one to step forward for the brain zap. Like,
again, did not like that.
But man is on a mission. He just wants love.
You're right. You're right.
So they get to the ship.
They get inside. The women are extremely, extremely ill. They are listless. One of them won't even wake up. And Georgie hears one of the other hunters resonating. And she's like, who fucking did that? And nobody cops to it. She was like, everybody get out. They like get a fire going, wake everybody up. And she's like, I have to explain this shit to them. So what kind of happens is, I would say, like a very quick resolution, but also once again, we have Liz being the reasonable motherfucker out of all of them. Like, she's sassy and she's sarcastic, but she's also just like, Georgie, you're saying that our options are to fight the other aliens when they get back and try to take their ship, or stay on this planet and potentially mate these aliens. We can't fight. We can't even stand. Like, that's just straight up not an option. But one of them, it might have been Liz, was like, you keep asking what we want to do. What do you want to do? And that's when Georgie kind of admits to them that she would like to stay because she's pregnant.
Also, you don't know that you're pregnant. There's been nothing else that has confirmed this other than she's like, oh shit, I'm late. But also it's been like 4 days. So
even if your period is late, your period can stop when you are malnourished, when you are stressed
out.
Like, there are plenty of reasons why you are not regular that do not equate to you being pregnant, for the record. However, all of that aside, let's assume that Georgie is in fact pregnant. We get the greatest line
it was
in the
really
entire
good.
book. And we get it from, of course, my favorite character of this whole story, Liz. In response to Georgie being like, in my defense, I didn't think he could get me pregnant. Liz goes, a Great Dane can still make a Chihuahua pregnant. Guess which one you are.
Perfect.
Perfect. No notes. Comedic genius.
Yeah, it was a good one. So Georgie tells Vektal, finally,
that there are women in the station.
She's like, I've got good news and bad news, which he doesn't understand. And she tells him there's actually 11 girls, not 5, that they need to rescue. And she thinks that he's going to be mad about it.
And obviously he's fucking ecstatic.
Yes, he says, mad. I'm ecstatic that there are 5 women who are young, healthy, and mateable seems as a gift from the gods. 6 more is an unthinkable bounty, which also don't like that he's referring to the women as a bounty.
I agree. Also, his reference to a gift from the gods does beg the question of what gods do you worship? Like, what does that mean? I have lots of questions. Like, up until this point, we've only talked about Kui, which is not godlike. But I digress.
They start to like free the other 6 girls in the tube one at a time, get them up to speed.
While the girls are discussing their situation, one of them says, so we're staying? And I look at the tired, exhausted faces of my fellow captives. If you guys are decided, yes. And then Liz says, if a guy shows up with a hamburger, he can plant as many babies in me as he wants.
Yeah, she had some good lines.
Georgie says, I hear shuffling outside and low murmured conversations. I sigh and look at Liz. Did I mention that some of them learned English from the old ship? The offer stands, Liz says with a grin. Shall we wake up our test tube ladies? Like, I fucking loved her. She was hilarious.
So they've got all 6 of the girls out of the tubes. Vektal sees the rest of his men coming back with news that there's a Sakatsk near.
Yes, that's the big monster that has the Kui growing in its heart. Yes.
Then there is a high-pitched noise and the trackers. Oh, I don't think we mentioned this, that the girls all have trackers in their forearm.
Oh, yeah, we did not.
Those trackers start blinking, which means the bad aliens are coming back. They're like, we got to get moving. They had to cut the trackers out. 12 of the girls, including Georgie, and 10 of the hunters are heading towards the Sahatsk.
Yes, they do drop all of the girls' trackers in the nearest Metlak cave. That's the monster monkeys.
Right.
So that should the aliens be tracking them to their location, they're going to find a bunch of monkeys instead of the women that they had left here.
Which, good.
I hope they get torn to shreds.
You asshole aliens. So this monster thing that they're going to hunt and take down is so big that the ground is shaking. Obviously, Vektal is the one to take it down.
Of course.
Seemingly single-handedly.
Indeed.
He guts the animal, pulls out his heart.
Another thing that men should be considering unrealistic in romance novels, frankly.
He slices the heart open, and there are dozens of thin, wriggling, gossamer worms in there.
I said, good.
Vektal comes over with one of these worms and says they cannot live long out in the cold. We must make an incision in your neck and give the Kui a safe place to reside. And she tells him that she loves him. I said, Stockholm Syndrome. This has been fewer than 8 days. We're probably nearing on a week. And
I mean, it's better than 2 hours.
I guess. So she can feel the Kui burrowing inside her toward her heart, and she passes out. And somehow, her passing out after getting her neck sliced, putting a worm in it, and her passing out does not deter the rest of the girls from getting the same thing.
Very, very strange.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. I don't believe you. Like, if Georgie's your leader... I'm sorry, I just don't. Like, if Georgie's your fearless leader and you watch her, like, step up all brave, they cut open her neck and they put the worm in and she fucking collapses and then doesn't wake up.
They had enough time that all 11 of the other women were able to get theirs, and, like,
so like she wasn't awake yet.
Up. Right.
And enough time that Rahosh had disappeared
with Liz. Yes. So she asks if all of the Sakui men had found mates, and he said not all, but some. They will approach things slowly, this I promise, except for one, and Georgie can't see Liz. So Rahosh has slunk off with her like a metlock with a kill. She thinks to herself, boy, I almost feel sorry for Rahosh. He doesn't know what he's gotten himself into by taking Liz, which is funny.
True.
But
and funny.
Then, so she keeps hearing thunder. He says, your Kui sings for me. So it's not thunder, it's that purring that she was hearing. So now she's less worried about the other girls, and instead she wants to run off and fuck.
They're out in the open, which not my thing, but go off, queen. And she's like, have you ever done it from behind? And he was like, no, because of the tails, which I thought was kind of funny.
Yeah.
Like, he's never experienced doggy style before because his kind have tails that get in the way.
But also, she's talking about this giant cock, and she wants from behind. What?
That's a lot to take. Quite literally to take in. But whatever. So they are fucking like on this rock out in the open. She's not cold anymore because she has the Kui, so it keeps her warm. And then, like, right as they're getting to like the climax, in more ways than one, the alien ship shows up. And so then, like, everything stops.
So they can see it, but it doesn't show up, like, above them. They can see it in the distance.
Yes, they can see it in the distance, and, like, they freeze. And they basically watch as, like, I was scanning at this point, because I was like, what an abrupt end to the smut, which is what I'm here for, personally. And so, like, the alien ship does what I assume is a scan, discovers that all the trackers are in a den of wild animals. Whatever they see makes the ship leave.
Yes.
And they're like, okay, I guess we're here to stay. Like, the end. And I'm like,
quite literally, the end. So after this, Vektal lifts me off the rock and pulls me into his arms, and he can't stop kissing me. I laugh and kiss him back, and then we fall into the snow together, our pants down. And, like, he tells her that they mate for life, and then the story's over. Like, the first probably 30 pages I could have done without. We needed 30 more pages.
30 more pages.
Yes. Like, get them back to the cavern or whatever.
Give me just a little bit more. What would you rate it? Okay.
I'm going to give this a 1.
Ooh, spicy.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
I didn't love it. It took me a long time to get through. The sex scenes didn't do it for me, really.
Uh-huh.
And I think the first part of the story, like, even if I had skipped over that, I think it still probably would have been a 1, maybe a 1.5. But I don't know. I didn't like it.
Incredible.
Like, I might read the second one and see if they get better. The author did say herself, like, she got her footing. And then, so maybe they get better from here. So maybe I'll give it a second shot with the second book. I didn't like this one.
A 1 star from Kay.
Yeah.
I'm giving it 3.
I knew it was going to be more than me. I thought you might even give it a 4. You seem to like this one, but you're also our fantasy girl. So
yeah. I mean, so the reason I'm giving it a 3 and not a 4 is because I think the beginning of it was so out of place and so unnecessary. If you skipped most of part 1, had a little more resolution at the end, then I would have been like very firmly in the 4-star category. But all of those things aside, I kind of liked the world building. I thought the sex worked. I liked Georgie. Like, I thought that she was a good main character. Vektal, once we got to know him and understand him, I thought also worked as a good foil for her. Like, he had all of the hallmarks that I like to see in a romance male main character, where he respects her for what she is and can do, is able to adjust his desires to what she wants. Like, all of that worked for me. So I'm giving it 3 stars.
All right. I like this. I like when we don't agree on it, because you get that other perspective.
And given how often it doesn't work for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
I'm kind of delighted to be on this end of it this time.
I'm excited for you.
So tell me, Kay, who would play our main characters?
For Georgie, I went a little older than the 22 years old for most of these characters. Good. I didn't love that part of it, so I'm changing that for my movie. So Georgie, I pictured as Saoirse Ronan.
Oh, hell yeah.
So she's kind of badass. Like, I could see her being the one to, like, set out on this trek by herself. I don't know.
Yeah.
That was my Georgie pick. Now, for Vektal, the picture that you're going to see, I changed the color of it so that he's a little blue. I have chosen Chris Hemsworth for Vektal.
Oh my
He
God.
is tall and beefy. Put some horns on that man and use him as a steering wheel.
I love it. I love everything about it.
Liz, I've chosen Anna Kendrick for Liz.
I love it.
Because she's snarky and she would be the one that, like, is...
Girl, like, of course a Great Dane can impregnate a Chihuahua.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. So that is who I've chosen for Liz. Maylock, who's the healer, Zoe Kravitz.
Oh, I like it. That, like, calm, like, I can't be frazzled kind of energy.
Yes, where she would be explaining the Kui and how, like, she wasn't originally happy with her mating choice because she had the chief that she was fucking, and then she ends up with someone that's not a hunter as her mate.
Yeah.
And then Rahosh.
Oh my fucking God.
Man,
you finally got Jason Momoa
got Jason Momoa as one of my fan casts. This man he's fit into a lot of roles, and Rahosh almost has that Khal Drogo energy from Game of Thrones. Any chance to look at Jason Momoa's face and I'll take it.
I'm obsessed. I love it.
That is this week's fan cast.
Thank you. The God's work that you're doing by putting faces on these characters for us. Are you reading anything outside of these smutty books that we keep picking up?
So I traveled this past weekend, and you would think that I would have had a lot of time to read, but I did not.
That's okay.
So what about you?
I end up listening to a lot of nonfiction on audiobooks.
Okay.
And I don't know how to explain my obsession with financial fraud stories, but the topic that I've been on recently is Enron. So I won't bore you with the details, but it's interesting because, like, the tagline for a lot of the stories about Enron could be summed up as people who are smart enough to figure out how to circumvent regulation, but not smart enough to understand the consequences of doing that, which is quite fascinating to me and probably not to many others.
But also very current.
Yeah, well, there's a reason why I've been struggling to get through this one.
So next week.
Yes, do tell, okay? What are we reading for next week?
Our episode will drop the day after Easter. So we are going to read Railed by the Easter Bunny by Dahlia Davies.
Forgive us, Father, for we are reading sin.
I've started it already. It's pretty good so far. So I can't wait to talk about it. But again, if you've gotten this far, we appreciate you. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, tell your friends, leave a review. And with that,
we're at our wits' end.
See you next time.